there, RiderFlex Nation. Steve Urban here with more career advice and job interviewing tips for you. And as a quick reminder, if you enjoy our podcast, please remember to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes. And on today's podcast, how to withdraw from that job offer after you've accepted the position, which, by the way, 99.9% of the time, I would encourage you not to do that. But if for some reason you have to, if you landed the job, you got the offer, you accepted the position, but now you got to go back and withdraw. Here are 7 key things I want you to think about, 7 tips. Number 1, tell the parties involved as soon as possible. Don't drag it out. Don't go dark. Don't just stop communicating. Tell the parties as quickly as you possibly can. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, tell them in person. Don't send an email. Don't send a text. When I say in person, I guess in person or over the phone, but don't send a text and don't send an email. Remember, you've gone all the way through the process, right? You've built these relationships, okay? And people have done a lot of work to get you there. The recruiter, the employer, everybody's spent a lot of time on you to actually get you through the process and get an offer on the table and get you to accept. So everybody's invested a lot of time. You owe them some courtesy and respect to call them over the phone and tell them, okay? Don't send a text. Don't send an email, okay? Number 3, tell the recruiter first if, in fact, a recruiter was involved in the process. Okay, don't let the recruiter get blindsided by you telling the employer, and then the employer calls the recruiter, which, keep in mind, for a recruiter, the employer is their client, right? So the recruiter should always know what's going on first, and they should never be blindsided by the employer. So do the recruiter a favor, the person you built the relationship with, tell the recruiter first. Explain to them what happened, walk them through it, okay, and then you and the recruiter can decide together how and when to tell the employer. Number 4, okay, be sincere, be apologetic, and have some empathy, okay? Really understand that you've blown up probably 2 months worth of work for the recruiter, okay? You've made the recruiter look bad in front of their client, okay? You've also caused the employer to go through a bunch of work to try to get you an offer. Everybody's invested time. So when you're relaying what happened and you're making the phone call, you should be very sincere, very apologetic, and try to understand what they've gone through and the time they've invested in. Okay. Number 5. After you've done these phone calls to tell them what happened and apologize, then I would encourage you about a week later to follow up with a written letter. Okay, via email, you're following up with a letter to try and just one more time say, really appreciate your time, Mary. Thank you so much for everything you did for me. I know you invested a lot of time. My apologies. I'm sorry it didn't work out, blah, blah, blah. A nice letter after the fact about a week later. Okay. Number 6, okay, keep all the contact information and all of the relationships intact. Okay, that's so important. You remember, you also invested a ton of time in the process, right? You built a relationship with the recruiter. You got to know people at the company. Keep those relationships. Don't let all that just go down the toilet. Now, it's tough, right? Because you're going to piss them off after you've accepted the job and then you withdraw. Everybody's going to be upset at least at first. But if you handle it right, you send a letter about a week later, and then maybe 6 months later, you send them a nice LinkedIn message or something to connect. Just try and maintain those relationships. You never know when that could pay off for you down the road. Who knows, right? Maybe you need to go back to that company someday for something. Maybe they can offer you a job 2 years later. Maybe that recruiter can get you in the door somewhere else 6 months later if you aren't happy with your job. So those are relationships you've invested time with. Keep those intact. And number 7, if you did in fact have another offer or another potential job in process while you were interviewing at company A? Okay, you were interviewing at company A and recruiter A, you were doing your thing with them, but in the background you had something else going on with a different recruiter, recruiter B and company B. If you were in fact doing that, I would just encourage you in the future to tell company A and recruiter A what's going on. Don't hide that from them. You should be sharing that information right up front. You should just say, hey, look, Mary, listen, I appreciate the interview, but before it gets too far down the path, I just want to make sure I'm also interviewing with company B. Just keep everybody involved and keep everybody informed. There's really no reason not to. In fact, it can help you, right? If you're interviewing with company A and you tell them, hey, look, I'm also interviewing with company B, okay, and recruiter B, if you tell everybody, they'll all move faster. They'll all probably try to move quicker through the process to get you an offer if they know there's other people involved or you have other opportunities on the table. So please communicate that. Don't hide things from people. Don't end up going through the process and accepting a job or getting ready to accept a job and then blindside the recruiter and say, oh, sorry, I got another offer and I got to take it. Meanwhile, you never told the recruiter you were actually interviewing somewhere else. Don't do that. There's no reason to hide that information. In fact, sharing it can help you. And then finally, those are my 7 key reasons. But then finally, just one more message on this topic. If in fact you accepted a job, okay, you went through the process, you accepted it, everybody thought you were going to take it, and then you back out and you withdraw because your current company gave you a counter offer and you want to stay at your current company, I just want to tell you folks, so often that does not work out. Okay, I've done podcasts on that topic before and you can look it up. Counter offers usually never work. You end up just as unhappy as you were before and you end up leaving anyway. And there is your RiderFlex tip of the day. We truly hope you find our material helpful and entertaining. And while our podcast can be heard across most platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud, you can become a supporter of this podcast by visiting our show on the platform Anchor FM. That's anchor.fm/RiderFlex. You can also send us your questions or suggested topics for future episodes to the email address podcast@riderflex.com or drop us a voicemail at 888-964-5876 extension 710. Visit riderflex.com to learn more about us. Thanks so much for listening, folks, and have a great day.